welcome one and all. It's time for a battle report, the like of which you may never have seen. It's time for a narrative to be spun, a battle for the ages, the Dwarves versus the Wood Elves. And to join us on this momentous occasion, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Remington Steele.
Hello, Warhammer friends. We're back again, and I've brought my Wood Elves with the intention of annihilating and his pathetic dwarves once and for all.
Once and for all, so if you win the game, do I have to actually incinerate my dwarven army?
Well, that might be difficult because you've got a lot of metal in there as well as plastic, right?
Yes, so probably have to go through some kind of high temperature kind of cremation process and see if any of it can survive that.
Yes, but this is a really enjoyable game, and I've not played for a good few months, whereas you've done dozens and dozens of competitive and friendly games at your local club. And I must admit, Andy, you were very gracious in this game, and we managed to do it in less than 3 hours, which is a record for me at 2,000 points.
Yes. So, let's have a look at the game in question. We have a vast army of Wood Elves on one side. We have a small detachment of Dwarves on one side, who will be joined by a larger force, but to give you the narrative behind this, and to explain why the Dwarves have got a little fortified position. So, Thorgrim Ullickson, the Dwarf Lord, has paid a visit to a local mining outpost. Unbeknownst to him, the head miner, the prospector if you will, has been mining without due care and attention, and has actually built a mine shaft directly through the sacred root of the most sacred of all the Wood Elf trees in the forest. Wouldn't you know it, it's just typical. You can't dig a hole without hitting something, can you? And the Wood Elves are not going to take that lying down, and they've made their way here. So Thorgrim is ready to lead this ragtag band of miners and just general local dwarves from the outpost, while his army is stationed nearby, because they didn't want to brave the treacherous mountains unnecessarily. You know how dangerous terrain is in the old world. You roll a 1 and you die. So there was no need for them to join. But as soon as they saw this army of Wood Elves approaching, the horn was blown, the mighty horn. His army in the surrounding area were alerted, and they're going to be making their way through the mountains as fast as possible to reach this little area of greenery. So they're going to come in to help at some point, but we don't know exactly how soon it's going to be. So we've got the Dwarven forces, which is less than 1,000 points starting on the table. There is another 1,000 points of Dwarves, which will be joining. The units will either be entering from a table edge on turn 2 or turn 3, on a unit-by-unit basis to provide the reinforcements. And the Wood Elves' sole objective is to murder the Dwarf Lord, who is in charge of this sacrilegious, blasphemous act, tunnelling straight into that magnificent tree root that's sprouted life into the forest for generations, and they want to kill Thorgrim. So, Mr. Remington, upon hearing the scenario, what thoughts did that conjure up in your mind as to a game plan and a potential army list that you could bring?
Right, well, I knew Andy would bring some kind of gun line for this, because this is your wet dream, isn't it? Just to have all your dwarves lined up. My elves are going to be lined up against you with at least 1 or 2 turns to get to you. Meanwhile, you're going to mow them down with your organ gun and your gunners, and then you're going to have some kind of engineer with a really good bazooka gun that can destroy a whole unit. So with that in mind, I decided to go with quite a competitive list. In that, I've brought my Wood Elf Dragon. Why not? I've done this list a couple of times. Not this list, but used the dragon. So I wanted to bring him, and I tooled up my Glade Lord on a dragon. I thought, well, he can take the hits. I didn't bring a tree man. Instead, I would bring some fast cav with the Glade Riders and the Wild Riders. No Sisters of Thorn. Managed to squeeze in an Eagle. 2 units of 5 Deepwood Scouts. 2 units of 5 Glade Guard. Yes, Andy, getting it ready. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Look at those beautiful Wild Riders.
Yes.
They're my favourite unit. They're so cool.
Yeah, we're going to go through your army properly first
Yes.
and deployment, and we can get a good look at each unit, and then we'll go back to mine. But
So the idea was I need to be fast and get in your face as soon as possible. Mop up this 1,000 points of pathetic, filthy dwarven beards before the big guns come on, and I should be well placed to either fire or flee or meet you head on. So my army is a mixture of combat heavy, plus it's got some decent shooting. There's the Glade Lord on a dragon. How is he tooled up, you might be wondering? Well, I decided to go with a great weapon. Instead of paying 30 points for an ogre blade, why not just take a great weapon? So he'll be, strength 6. That's good enough. And I've got the armor of destiny, which gives me a 4-up ward save, and I'm sitting on a 3-up save with the full plate armor of the dragon and the shield.
so only 2 saves, so that's actually quite generous for a dragon.
Yeah,
Only 2.
I might have been able to get him up to a 2-up save with a ward, maybe. I'd have to check on that. But I've also brought the annoyance of nettlings, because I knew Andy would do some kind of shenanigans in this game where he won't let my dragon just, moor his way through his units, and will probably give me lots of challenges. So with that in mind, I've put an annoyance of nettlings on my Dragon Lord, which means he has a -1 to hit in a challenge. Yes, and what else have I got? Well, you can see I've got 10 War Dancers there.
Quite a blurry picture of the War Dancers.
Yeah, mixture of old and newish school miniatures there, some 80s, some early noughties. These guys are kitted out with extra hand weapon. I've got throwing javelins, and I've got a blade singer who's kind of like a unit champion. I love these guys. I just want to get them into the fray as soon as possible.
That's a better picture now.
Yeah, here are some of Scarlock's Wood Elf scouts, but they are just Glade Guard. 5 basic Glade Guard, no upgrades apart from Hagbane. All my army has Hagbane, which is basically a poison attack. If I roll a 6 to hit, it's an automatic wound, and Andy has to see if he can save it.
It's almost like you knew you'd be facing a high toughness army. That's really weird, isn't it?
I knew I'd be facing lots of war machines, so poison attacks is definitely the way to go. I've got another 5 Glade Guard on the left of the picture. In the middle, I've got 5 Deepwood Scouts in the middle with the checkered tops on.
Still in their pyjamas, I see.
Yeah. Behind them, I've brought some more War Dancers, just in case you destroy one unit. I want to get some into combat. I love these guys. Very glass cannony, just like the Wild Riders, but it's a glorious way to fight. And to the top left, you can see I've got, top right now. Yeah, you can see I've got a unit of 10 Eternal Guard, full command, with shields. No magic items there. They're just going to soak up some pressure and hold you up because they're decent at that. I've got a level 4 Spellweaver at the back, and she has Elementalism. And I've got the Oaken Stave, and that's for a 40-point magic item, which gives me a 3-inch extra 3-inch dispel rain. I did think you were going to bring Anvil of Doom. I did think you would do that, but you didn't. So as soon as I realised you hadn't, I thought, this is fantastic. I've got a chance here now, because the magic missile of the Anvil of Doom just can delete Wood Elves unless you dispel it. So next to the Spellweaver, I've got 10 Wildwood Rangers, full command. Love those guys. They can come in with a strength 5 attack. Not many Wood Elf units can do that. We've got 5 more Deepwood Scouts there at the front. They are Waywatcher models, but using them as scouts. And a 60-point Eagle at the back, just to be annoying. And hassle war machines, get in the way of things. And to the left of that, I've got 8 glade riders with hagbane tips and cavalry spears.
Right then, let's go back to the dwarven forces who are going to be defending Thorgrim. So we've got Thorgrim Ullickson, who's played by the old Belagar Ironhammer model, because he's on an Oath Stone. So Thorgrim's trick is that he drops the Grudge Stone at some point during the game, and then the unit that he's in becomes unbreakable for the rest of the game then. Unless, obviously, he were to get killed or... And they're not allowed to move after that either. They're only allowed to give ground or follow up. So, my hope is that this unit of miners that he's in is going to provide him some level of protection, and then if they become unbreakable, it doesn't matter if they keep losing combat. It'll take a few turns to get through them all, probably. And as far as the list building aspect of including miners in there, they are just a bad unit, objectively, but the story is that this is a mining outpost, so there has to be miners in there. And this part of the list is an engineer's expeditionary force, by the way. The other part of the list isn't, so it's like 2 separate armies that don't necessarily abide by all the construction rules for armies, because some of the units are a bit too big, but for narrative purposes, that's okay. So, other heroes that are in this section, we've got an engineer with a handgun. So in the expeditionary force, you can kind of make a mini version of the Thane handgun of Doom with an engineer, and you can give it enough runes so that the gun is good. You can give it the Master Rune of Bursting Flame, Rune of Rapid Fire, so it's 2 shots, they explode into multi-shots, and then you can put Expeditionary Marksman upgrade on him as well, so he doesn't take minus anything to hit for moving. So for stand and shoot, very, very good. Better than the Thane at stand and shoot because he naturally hits on 2s being an engineer, but he can potentially suffer modifiers to that for things like long range and cover. Then there is a Dwarf Engineer Sapper, who is hanging out outside of the unit, and I'll explain why now. Because the Sapper, first of all, he can let a unit act as if they're defending a low linear obstacle, but we've already got loads of walls, so we don't need that right now. But also, any enemy units that finish within his command range might suffer wounds from dangerous terrain, because he's just throwing out all kinds of engineering gadgets and traps around the place. So he's just hanging out here, waiting for the enemy to crash into the lines.
How many traps can you put down, Andy, with an engineer?
It's just, for the whole game, if you finish in his command range, then you take the test. So
Right,
he's just constantly like throwing out traps around his position. Unless he's in combat or fleeing, which is why he's not in the unit, because then if you charge in, you wouldn't have to take the test.
Yeah.
Then we've got a scout gyrocopter behind the house. It's behind the house because it doesn't want to get shot immediately, because it's only toughness 4, so it's not as tough as a normal gyrocopter. We've got 16 thunderers. They do have great weapons. They can do a little bit of fighting, and if we get to shoot at the dragon, we won't have to worry about being in multiple ranks, because all of them will be able to see it, because it's so big. Then we've got an organ gun on the hill, just one lonely organ gun. The engineer being there, he can obviously get it to re-roll the dice for the number of shots. So that is the entire defensive force. So we've got the Thunderers, the first line of defence for their stand and shoot ability, and then if the enemy get through them, you've got to deal with the miners with Thorgrim as well in there. There is a prospector with a steam drill, who is the classic ancient dwarf miniature there at the front, which you'll probably see a better picture of at some point. And there we go, from the side, the Little Dwarf Mining Outpost Defence Force. Then, in the mountains somewhere, we have the following. We have 20 Royal Clan Warriors. So this is a Royal Clan list that's going to be joining possibly in turn 2. On turn 2, I'm going to roll the dice for each unit, and on a 4+, that unit can enter the game from any table edge, 6 inches away from the enemy, can't charge that turn. So it's going to be a while before they can reach the enemy. And then if they fail to come in on turn 2, they'll come in on turn 3 instead. To represent the uneven terrain and the fact they're trekking over the mountains. Maybe they all had their pants down for some reason when the horn went off, and they're just hurriedly making their way to the battlefield. So, Royal Clan Warriors. And they have the Rune of Battle in there as well on their full command. And we've got 19 Iron Breakers, who also have a Rune of Battle and the full command as well. So Rune of Battle just to boost up that combat res, which we might need against things like dragons if they end up fighting that. we've got a bolt thrower, nice cheap 55-point bolt thrower. Then we've got a Thane leading this band of royal warriors, and this Thane is on shield bearers and has a great weapon and the Master Rune of Smiting. The reason that I was thinking Master Rune of Smiting is because I thought if he brings something terrifying like a dragon, I want something to threaten it, so something that does a lot of wounds. However, technically you could argue that I shouldn't be allowed to do that because Thorgrim also has the Master Rune of Smiting built in. However, they are also two separate armies I'm using here, so I'm going to say it's allowed for that reason. Then, to finish off the list, we've got 3 Doom Seekers. So I think they're going to be good as part of a rescue force, because they're a bit faster than a normal dwarf, meaning they get the extra D3 on their charge. So I think that will make them ideal. Also, there may be a little bit less of a juicy target for shooting at, because there's only one of them in a unit, so potentially might be wasting shots there, because they do count as skirmishers, so -1 to hit them. So there is the rescue force. Now, I don't feel like this is a good dwarf list. If you put the two halves of this dwarf list together, it's not powerful, because there's a lot of close combat stuff that can be easily avoided, and there isn't that much shooting in there. But for the purposes of this game, we just need to try and keep Thorgrim alive. So we'll see if it does the job. I do think that looking between the two lists, if they were just having a straight-up battle against each other, I think the Wood Elf Dragon is probably going to provide too much. But speaking of giant mythical beasts, we were being observed while playing this game by Dave the guinea pig. So there's a couple of pictures of him as he seated himself in such a way, he actually sat on the roof of this little hidey cushion that they have. And just so he could watch the game as it was unfolding, there he is, glued to the gaming table. As you should be, absorbing tactical insight and absorbing narrative spirit, I'm sure. So you can see, the Wood Elves were just given turn 1. The reason for that is they're on the attack, aren't they? So it just makes sense that they would get the first turn. So the Dwarves have...
You did give me the first turn, and I was prepared to roll for it, but I did do the Arrow of Kurnos to start with, which gives me a free shot at your general, and then I promptly rolled a 1. So I missed that, and then I thought, well, surely you'd want to go first. Maybe you'd get a round in of shooting. But no, you gave it to me, which was very generous of you.
Yes, I feel like the narrative calls for the Wood Elves to go first. The Dwarves are up against it, because we don't need to actually win, we just need to have one guy survive the battle. So, the Wood Elves have gone first. You can see the dragon immediately has positioned itself so close that I won't get a stand and shoot against it if it charges. So I've got one turn to try and put as much damage into it as possible. Bad Squiddo Games says, Rem is way quieter than you. Well, that doesn't sound right.
Am I louder now? I've moved my microphone closer.
Did you move it further away after we did the sound test? That would be a very Remington
probably.
move.
I was turning and I was just painting a banner. So it's probably my fault there. It should be louder now though, yeah?
That will be why then, because now that I can see you've moved it, our audio levels are now going up to the same point. Classic Rem maneuver. And also, did no one else point that out beforehand? Maybe it wasn't noticeable at the start. Maybe you only just turned away, so I'll let the people off with that then. We have been joined by quite a few people in there already, though. We've got...
Becky says, hello, Becky. She says she likes the old crew models for the old organ gun, just gorgeous. That is my favourite organ gun too.
Yeah, I think that is the best organ gun. I've got all 3 of them, but I think the middle one, which is the one I'm using in this game, is the best.
Yeah, I would look at it while you can, because, yeah... Just watch till the end of this turn, at least.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn your volume up even more.
Yes, turn me loud, Andy.
Okay, there we go.
Loud and proud. I want to get my dragon right in your face. That's what I've done. I'm like, go on then. Take your best shots.
Yeah, so we'll see if we can kill that dragon before it charges into anything. Then... Oh, look, we've got a close-up of the rider of the dragon as well. Isn't that nice? Okay, so it's getting nice and close. Now, your spells, you did have to actually roll for them, which is a novel thing in the old world, someone actually rolling for their spells instead of just taking lore familiar. So...
Well, do you have to pay for lore familiar?
Yes, but it's definitely worth it, because you just get the best spells.
Oh, that kind of sucks, man. I think you should roll for them.
I agree. But you did end up with earth and ramparts.
Yeah, which gives you a 5-up ward save on a unit. So I stuck that on the Glade Guard straight off. Sorry, the Glade, what they're called? The Eternal Guard, yeah, the Eternal Guard.
Yeah, so a nice 5+ ward save for them. Which other spells did you get?
I got Storm Call, which gives you a -1 movement, which is fantastic against dwarves. I also got Travel Mystical Pathways, so I can move a unit that hasn't moved yet and place them 12 inches away. So it's not a huge distance, especially when you've got across the whole table.
It gives you
Like my
maneuverability, though, because you can also
Yeah.
use it to move sideways or over other units that you wouldn't normally be able to.
Yeah, you can plonk maybe you could plonk a skirmishing unit in front of something that you want to protect, possibly. So I got that, and then I got one more spell, which was Wind Blast, which I can't wait to use that. I've heard good things about it.
Yes.
I think that would be very good against dwarves because they're a bit, short and stubby.
And if we actually go back and look at this picture, when I was deploying and found out that he had Wind Blast, you'll see that I haven't put anyone right back against the edge, because they would just die immediately as soon as they're hit by Wind Blast in that case.
Now, talking of dwarves being too close to the edge, I did think if I can pin Andy in that corner and incite any kind of panic and run, he'll be off the table. And I thought, Andy, why have you penned in all your dwarves? Get into the middle of the table, spread out a bit, get those miners up at least, But yeah, I think he liked the protection behind that wall.
Yes, because we are playing with the FAQ stipulation that low linear obstacles do prevent stomps. So that was my thinking there. Position behind the wall, so the dragon might take multiple turns getting through this unit of Thunderers, especially with there's a character in there and there's a champion that could challenge, so that could eat a couple of turns up. By the time I could have reinforcements by then as well.
Yeah, now if you look at where my War Dancers are and my Eternal Guard and my Wild Rangers, even if I'm marching, it's going to take me like 2 turns to get within charge range of Andy. But not if you're the dragon, and not if you're the Wild Riders. So
and the eagle.
And the eagle.
Don't forget the eagle.
Yeah, I'm gonna. My tactic is kind of like blitzkrieg, lightning attack. Get in there, let the dragons soak up the shooting, and let's pin the cushion. I can't even explain what I'm trying to say. Yes, pin cushion the dwarves. Yes. That's the idea. So I've plunked my Glade Riders on the hill, so they're going to get some nice shooting there.
Now, is it fair to say you're disappointed because one of your Wood Elves here seems to have been killed by a tree root in their own forest?
Well, I like how Andy makes these funny rules up as you go, because it's like I read the rules as elves can move through cover. So I interpret that as they can move without penalty. And then Andy says, well, no, these are enchanted forests.
Well,
so you on a roll of 1, you're gonna die.
So what you've done is looked at the name of the rule and not the text underneath the name of the rule, unfortunately. So move through cover just allows you to re-roll the 1 on the dangerous terrain test, which sadly did not help this Wood Elf, who maybe was just so enraged at the mine shaft that's gone through the sacred tree root, potentially killing the whole forest. He was so enraged that he just can't wait to get into battle and didn't look where he was going, put his foot down a rabbit hole and died.
Well, they are holding 2-handed glaives, which are very dangerous. So any trip up, you could easily have fallen on top of that glaive and really done a lot of damage.
Yeah, imagine.
I guess that's what happened.
The forests of the old world are littered with the skeletons of people that put their foot down rabbit holes.
Yeah. Now, I will warn people. Before we did this battle, I watched a load of battle reports that featured Wood Elves and a load of YouTube creators, Warhammer old world fans that talk about elves, and they talk about the best list and what works and what doesn't. And I wouldn't listen to too much of that rubbish. If I did, I wouldn't have took my Wildwood Rangers, wouldn't have took all them War Dancers. Do you know what I mean? It kind of ruins the fun a bit, really. But I did bring the dragon, which is, you might think is a bit too gamey, but I did paint it, and the wonderful Bad Squiddo Games, um, where I bought the dragon from, I thought I'd represent, and had to bring it basically.
Yeah. So you've done some wounds to the organ gun with those poison arrows, which, as we know, are also laced with termites. So they just chew through
Yes,
that wood like nobody's business.
it's a bit funny, isn't it? Should poisoned arrows hurt a war machine? I don't know, but it's the only way I can figure that I can take them out with my wood elves.
It
So
feels like poison should only work against specific targets, like probably not skeletons, probably
yeah,
not cannons, you would think. It's the same way that like flaming attacks is more powerful against flammable units. So maybe certain units should be vulnerable to poison, but not others.
yeah, maybe wood elf bows should be strength 4 at short range or something like that.
Or maybe you could take arrows that are good against war machines and skeletons because they're tipped with something else other than poison, and you can pick different arrows.
Flaming arrows maybe do damage to war machine. Maybe. Anyway, regardless, I managed to take off a couple of wounds.
Yes.
Stuck my eagle in front in case you wanted to shower me with organ gun bullets. You have to shred through the eagle first.
Yep, have to shoot a 60-point eagle instead of the cavalry, otherwise there's going to be some cover, which the organ gun doesn't like because then it's hitting on 6s, so that's not ideal.
Exactly. The wild riders on the right of the picture, they are storming across. There's no way I can get to you without some kind of hit back. I knew you'd probably bring out your gyrocopter and spray them with your clatter gun. But my only other idea with the Wood Elves was to pay for this standard that you can get, and it basically gives you, I think it's the Banner of the Hunter King. It gives you a vanguard move, which could be fantastic with the Wild Riders because it means I would actually start the game where I am now, potentially be in charge range then. But I didn't bring it, and so there they are. I'm just waiting for Andy to shoot me now, and hopefully you're going to aim at the dragon.
Well, you say that, but you have got more archers to shoot from within the woods, who kill the organ gun with more poison attacks. So turn 1, organ gun shot down by poison arrows.
Do I not like that?
I'm going to go through some history books. There are some in this house. I'm going to see if a wooden war machine has ever been destroyed by poison. Because you could poison a tree.
Well, the crew. I could kill the crew.
Yes, but shooting doesn't target the crew. So
I'm sure there was one version of Fantasy Battles where you roll a dice and either the shot hits the crew or the machine.
yes, it used to split the attacks between crew, and sometimes the rider and the dragon as well would have separate profiles, so the rider could be separate from the dragon if it got killed, or it would go wild if the rider got killed. All kinds of crazy rules. So there you go, organ gun dead. Everyone else is doing mostly okay. But it's not looking great because now that organ gun was supposed to be doing some good damage to the dragon to whittle it down. So maybe it was too scared to go in on its own, which buys valuable time. But turn 1 for the dwarves. The gyrocopter pops out up to behind the wall, shoots at the cavalry, and they don't seem to have lost anyone. I think there were 5.
Yeah, no, you did kill one. I'm pretty sure you killed one. Or I might have. I had talismanic tattoo save of a 6.
You might have passed your ward save then.
Yeah. Okay.
So, the entire Thunderers unit and the engineer with the exploding handgun, everyone at short range, the engineer's hitting on 2s. I get loads of hits into the dragon. And then to wound, looking for 6s, I get a few, but then they all get saved.
Yeah, they did all get saved, didn't they? I was pretty confident that even if you'd wounded me, I would still have a fair few wounds left. I think, is it 9 wounds altogether? Was it? Yeah, I think it's plus 6 wounds. The dragon as a mount gives you with 3 wounds for the character. That's 9 wounds, which is a heck of a lot. So I was hopeful that I'd still have at least sort of 4 or 5 wounds remaining, but absolutely gleeful when Andy didn't manage to break through there with any shooting.
So no wounds inflicted at all. And we're going to have to eat a charge now with no stand and shoot because he's too close.
Here comes the pain.
Here
Lovely,
it comes.
great bit of tactical genius by me there to negate your stand and shoot, which it's been the bane of my life all these years, Andy.
Yes, so the charge does go in. The dragon, who is eyeing up Thorgrim, who's hanging out back here in the miners. You're going to have to get through these tough thunderers first, though, with their great weapons.
Yeah, but I will get the first attack, and however, I won't get the D6 stomp attack because of you're behind a low linear object.
Exactly. But you have also brought the eagle into the flank as well. Let's not overlook the importance of the eagle.
Yeah. Now, one of the reasons I did this was that Andy said when he brings on his other troops, he's got another 1,000 points of dwarves to bring on. They can't come within 6 inches or so, was it?
Yeah, we were using the rules for when miners enter a table.
Yeah, so if I get some of my units near the table edges like that eagle, it means he won't be able to bring on his additional troops where the eagle is.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. I would love to have shot down some dwarves with the dragon's sulfuric acid breath, but you can't shoot and charge or move at the same time. So
I don't feel like, unless you're facing the wrong way and you physically can't charge somebody, I don't feel like you could ever justify using that acid breath when you could just be fighting with a dragon.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just with when Age of Sigmar came out, it was like you could use your shooting attacks and fight, couldn't you?
Yes.
It's crazy, but not in Old World.
No.
Probably fair.
And then look at this. So we do actually have a Wood Elf casualty now. Not just from stand and shoot with the gyrocopter, not just from walking through the woods and falling down a rabbit hole. This is pure dwarven gunfire here that takes down one of them.
Yeah, I think you might have killed another one in the attack in the actual combat round.
Well, let's move on to shooting, because you've got this cavalry unit with bows clearly on the hill, and they shoot down a miner.
Check out the potpourri on the bases there. Nice tip for you all when you're basing.
Yes, smells nice as well, at least for a while. So I have a feeling that the battle cry went up before these arrows were fired. We don't serve miners! There you go. One of them.
Wow, yeah.
Arrow straight through the eye, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, they're much more effective against war machines, it's clear to see.
Yes, war machines have less wounds and equally easy to poison. However, you've got more shooting.
I've got my Glade Guard on that hill. I don't know if I probably marched to get them on there, so I'm not sure if I actually had a shot with those, but maybe I did.
Well, you've taken out another miner.
Yeah. Yes, it's welcome.
And the scout gyrocopter does actually manage to kill one of these in combat, but still gets murdered.
Oh man, on the charge they are so good. So the unit champion there has 2 attacks, frenzied, which means 3 attacks, and then a furious charge. So 4 attacks for the champion and 3 attacks for the wild riders. So even if you do get a couple killed, if you've got a unit of 5, you're still pumping out a lot of hits at strength 5. Then you've got your reindeer attacks as well. So yeah, pretty sick.
Okay, then the dwarf Thunderer champion challenges the mighty dragon. So you've spent your whole life training as a dwarf thunderer. You're dispatched to this mining outpost. You think you might have to shoot down, what would you have to deal with out in the forest? The occasional beastman. But you don't think for one second that you're going to be challenging a dragon lord in hand-to-hand single combat.
Yeah, especially one that gives off terror. But Andy, you passed all your leadership test, I assume.
Yes, they passed their terror test when you tried to charge them, so they did not flee.
Now, if I didn't want to fight in a challenge, I wanted to kill your unit, but apparently I'm not allowed.
That is a weird part of the rules. I think, personally, that single models shouldn't be able to issue or accept challenges anyway. I think it's just weird, because it's not like a unit champion saying like, look, this is my unit, that's yours, let's leave them out of it for a minute and just fight in front of them to inspire the troops by chopping each other's heads off.
I think if it's a character, then maybe.
I think it's a kind of weird part of the mechanics, though, because I am rewarded for feeding you individual unit champions, and for some reason your person can't say no to it. And you could keep issuing challenges to get to the juicy characters.
Yes.
And if I refuse, you get to kick them to the back rank so I don't get their special rules. So, for example, I might have someone in there giving them a ward save, and if I keep refusing challenges, you can kick them out so I don't get the ward save anymore.
That is a feature of Old World, isn't it? I don't remember that being a part of any other...
Challenges definitely were in there.
They were?
Yes. The combat in general works a little bit differently across different editions, but challenges have been there before. But they're strange. So, there he is. Look how brave this Thunderer champion is, going toe-to-toe with a dragon. And what's that? The next picture, everybody's gone. So, the Thunderer champion was killed, as you'd expect. However, the Dwarves are not double outnumbered, which in the old world means that you have to fully fail your leadership test in order to flee properly. Because otherwise you'll just be falling back in good order. Even if you lose by 10 and you roll like a 4 on the leadership, you still fall back in good order because you're not double outnumbered. However, Dwarves, with the leadership of 10, because we've got the general right next to them, they managed to fail their test and run away 2 inches. So they're so terrified that they turn around and flee as fast as they can, which is about 3 feet, and then they get cut down by a dragon that comes to a stop just in front of the miners, so it doesn't quite reach them because that's where the unit was cut down. So I think he should really be about an inch away there. So that's unfortunate. The Thunderers, with that expensive engineer, they were hoping that dragon was going to be tied up for multiple turns, because the plan was the Thunderer champion challenges, gets killed. Then next turn the engineer challenges the dragon, probably gets killed. Next turn, maybe the engineer sapper goes in to combat with the dragon instead and challenges him. So more characters, and then by that time maybe we've got Doomseekers coming on to challenge the dragon. So if the dragon is the sole threat to the dwarf lord Thorgrim, then maybe we can keep feeding characters to it. If all the other Wood Elves are going to stay over here, then maybe we can let the lord survive and actually win this battle.
Yeah, very strange, Andy, because I did question why you put the miners behind the gunners. Because if they were side by side, perhaps the miners could have flank charged into the dragon, and maybe you should have just fought the dragon with your unit, rather than feeding me the champion. You know what I mean? Surround the dragon.
I think if I fed you the unit, there's a good chance that you could end up killing like 10 of them. And you wouldn't have to do that too many times before they would then flee quite easily. Because once you get them down to just a few models, then you'll be double outnumbering them on unit strength.
Right. Well, as it is, you can see my units at the top there have become ever closer to the action. I'm desperate to get my war dancers involved, but I've got to navigate my way around that house. But yeah, it doesn't look good for the dwarves, and it's only turn 2.
Turn 2, none of the reinforcements have come on yet, obviously, because it's only dwarf. We only had 1 dwarf turn. Gyrocopter's been killed, Organ Gun was killed, all the Thunderers and the Engineer have been killed. And that was the combat res, by the way. You only won by 1. So the Thunderers did have a close order unit, and they had a rank, and they had a banner. So because you didn't do that well in your attacks, only did 4 wounds onto this poor champion that you were just trampling with a dragon, they almost beat you, because if they'd got 1 more point or you'd got 1 less, then they would have won by having a musician. Can you imagine that if the dragon had fled?
It would have been fun. It would have, yeah.
Yes. So, let's go into the next turn. Dwarf, turn 2. So, the Dwarf warriors, the Royal Clan warriors, manage to find their way through the mountains onto the battlefield, and they come in on the right side. And this is after they've done their move as well, because they can do a move when they enter. So they're now facing the action, looking at the back of your cavalry there that overran through the gyrocopter. And the Ironbreakers with a Thane pop up as well on the other side. Obviously this eagle is blocking them from coming in here, which would have been better, because they'd be close to the action then to protect Thorgrim from the dragon. But instead they'll have to go through this puny eagle. The first Doomseeker has also come on over here, and has moved right next to the eagle, but out of its charge arc, because the Doomseeker doesn't want to seek its doom against an eagle, it wants to seek its doom against the mighty dragon instead.
Now, Andy, why have you put your Dwarf Lord on shield bearers in the corner of a unit and not in the middle where it would look a lot nicer?
Because it's just convenient to place it there.
Okay.
Because it fits in with my trays easier.
Okay.
There's no strategic reason for it, it's just convenient to plop it there.
Got ya.
Now you can see the miners have reformed a bit, and they're not charging into the dragon, because they're already right next to him, so the dragon's still going to strike first at them, and I'm just giving the dragon an extra turn to try and eat me then. So I want to give this dragon as few turns in combat as possible, because it seems like the dragon is going to be the main threat to murdering Thorgrim. The bolt thrower's in as well. Can't shoot yet, because it has moved onto the table, but it's now a threat. Not a big one. But the only dwarf units that didn't come on and find their way through the mountains this turn are 2 Doomseekers that are still lost out in the woods. So they're going to be coming through next turn. 2 fresh, spicy Doomseekers. So, do we think Thorgrim is going to survive the next turn? Because he's going to get charged by a dragon. Over the shoulder of the Ironbreakers there. You can see the plumpness of the Doomseeker butt cheeks there as well. Turn 3 for the Wood Elves. So, if we look at the wide shot going into this turn, are you feeling confident at this stage now the dwarf reinforcements have arrived and they're looking with this kind of pincer movement on your dragon?
Well, I've had games with you, Andy, before, and you know me. I want to get into battle. I don't want to play the avoidance game. And if I was playing the avoidance game, I would literally kill Thorgrim with the dragon and then run away with everything and the game would be won. But that's not my style. I want to obliterate you if I can, especially after all the times your dwarves have caused me so much pain to my beautifully painted models. So on the right hand side, my war dancers want to get involved, but they're just a little bit too far away to charge your royal clan. So not really much I can do there. I would like to get a flanking charge into your miners, perhaps with the Wild Riders, but I'm not in the line of sight.
Yeah, the fact that you have Frenzy on this unit has hurt them a little bit there.
So that means they have to charge.
It means they have to charge, and they also have to overrun as well, which is how they ended up here. So, here we go. Dragon's gone into the miners, into Thorgrim's unit. So, you're probably expecting that you're going to have to kill the dwarf miner prospector first. However, here's an interesting thing now. Because Thorgrim, in any command phase, he can drop the grudge stone, and knowing they were about to be charged by a dragon, he has now deployed his stone, which means that this unit of miners is unbreakable for the rest of the game. So, the hope is that I get Doomseekers in, they can charge the dragon, each in turn, one at a time, who can then keep challenging the dragon so it can't hit the miners or Thorgrim, and then they'll be unbreakable, so it doesn't matter if you win combat by 10 each time, they're going to be absolutely fine. And they'll stay there, and Thorgrim won't even have to lift a finger to defeat the dragon, because if that's the only thing that's going to fight me, I don't have to worry about being shot, because I'll be in combat with the dragon the whole time. And that was my main concern, actually, that you would just pincushion Thorgrim's unit with all your poison arrows and just kill all of them immediately, and then you'd be able to focus on him. But the dragon, while arguably way better than a load of poison attacks, also can potentially be shut down if I can keep challenging you with other things. For example, the sapper that's right here, if he's able to do so next turn, he could charge you as well.
Yeah, but if you do the maths, Andy, I've got 28 warriors with bows. I'll need 6 to auto-wound you. So statistically, I'm only going to get 4 or 5 6s, and then you'll get a saving throw. So
Yes,
it's
but they only have
technically
heavy armor.
Still,
They
there's
only have
no
heavy
rise
armor,
bias to the armor.
and you've got magic missiles as well.
Yeah, I've got the wind blast, haven't I?
Yes.
So yeah. So I can't remember. Did you get a full unit attack this round, or did my dragon probably went first, didn't it?
Well, you'll see in a moment.
Yeah.
You've earth and rampart this unit up again.
Yes, giving them a 5 ward save this time. I'm thinking that they could hold up your big daddy unit there. I want to see how my glaives fare against Ironbreaker Steel.
Now, here's the question for you. After you went on your speech a minute ago about how you don't want to play the avoidance game, you just want to get stuck in and obliterate the dwarves, I see the eagle has flown over the top of one of my units,
Yeah.
landed behind them, and your cavalry have not taken the inviting flank charge into the Ironbreakers.
No, I know better than to, charge a unit of Ironbreakers with some light skirmishers. That would be daft. But what I've done with the eagle there is give me options. So I can either do a rear charge or I can threaten your bolt thrower.
Yes.
And I'll get a round of shooting with the Glade Riders, maybe.
Now, I think you are eager to get the War Dancers into combat because they're going straight for the Royal Clan Warriors.
Yeah, now I've had a couple, 2 or 3 tries out with the War Dancers, and they are great when they're in combat, and they can be amazing if you get them on the flank of a unit engaged in combat. But it's really hard to get them across the battlefield to line up these sort of charges. So you're only probably going to get them in a combat in turn 3 or 4 at best. So then, it is tricky. I mean, look, the dragon has been involved from turn 1. So that makes sense that I've tooled the dragon up with loads of, extra magic armor, for example.
Now, the 3 remaining... what are they even riding? Is it stags?
Yes.
Yes, these stag riders. We were deciding how they could get behind the miners to fit through that gap, because you would go within an inch of them, which technically you're not supposed to do. But, of course, you can change your frontage a bit. So they did a little bit of a reform, and they're able to then get behind here.
Yes. Did your miners have blasting charges?
They did not.
I wonder if you could have used them when the dragon charged you.
So one interesting thing you can do with the miners is if you have the mining cart next to them, then you can actually give them... Let me have a look. I'm going to pull it up in the app here now and look at the dwarf cart. Let's have a look. The cart of mining goodness. Because you can actually give a stand and shoot with the dwarf cart if it's the miner's cart. Miner's cart.
I doubt it.
Any dwarf unit that is within 3 inches of a friendly miner's cart that is not fleeing may make a stand and shoot charge reaction or a shooting attack as if it were equipped with blasting charges. And when the miner's cart loses its last wound to an enemy attack during the combat phase, it explodes basically as well. But unfortunately,
Nice.
my cart was out of commission because in a recent game, it broke.
Right. And also, I might have been too close for you to do a stand and shoot, right?
Yes. You definitely would have been. I don't think... Do miners... They don't come with blasting charges automatically, do they, miners? No, they don't. You have to pay for the upgrade. So, it's a... Actually, you might have quick shot with that. Yes, you can stand and shoot no matter how close they are then. With blasting charges. But they're only strength 3 is the thing.
Oh, against what? Toughness 7, is it? Or toughness 6?
Toughness 6. I don't think a few blasting charges would have helped too much against the dragon.
No, it wouldn't have killed him. Let's face it.
No. So you've got some more shooting, and you kill a few Royal Clan Warriors, but not too much to worry them. The Dwarf Prospector, the classic dwarf miner, the maybe the oldest miniature on the table. Maybe some of your Wood Elves might be a little bit older.
Yeah, that's a Dwarf Lord of Legend there.
Sure is. Dies in the challenge. But obviously, the dwarves are unbreakable. They can't even give ground because your unit's right behind them.
So if anyone doesn't know what unbreakable is, it basically means they can't run away, right?
Yes. They can't run away. All they can ever do, if you keep beating them, they just keep giving ground 2 inches.
So they will fight to the last man, but they will be falling back every turn.
Slightly. Unless there's something behind them to prevent them falling back in giving ground.
Now the thing is, Andy, you are perilously close to the table edge there. So I could push you off the table edge, couldn't I?
Potentially, yes, but I do have the backup plan of bringing on a Doomseeker and just putting it behind the miners so that they can't give ground.
Be quick. He needs to pump his dwarven legs.
Now, you may notice that my plan of the Engineer Sapper charging into the dragon next turn and challenging it, that's been put to bed by all these poison arrows that aimed straight at the Engineer Sapper, who's just standing there, did nothing for the whole game, minding his own business, and now has become a pincushion for the sins of the local mine master, who was nothing to do with this sapper. He wasn't involved in the placement of the mine shaft that tunnelled into that sacred tree root. But you've still blamed him, despite the fact he did nothing wrong. It's just guilty by association, and he's been executed.
Now, I did consider charging the bolt thrower, which is off to the left there, but I just wanted another round of shooting instead. So the Glade Riders on the hill, they might have had a round of shooting against it, or unless they shot at the Ironbreakers, can't remember. But I thought it might be at this point, I thought it might be comedy to see what the bolt thrower can do, because Andy did have a nice shot lined up there, right through the flanks of my Wildwood Rangers and Eternal Guard, if you wanted.
Yes, and you may notice here that Big Butts, the legendary Slayer Doomseeker, has lost a wound as well from shooting, but is just about hanging on to life, which means he can just about see this dragon, and he is actually just within charge range as well. They have quite a surprisingly big charge distance, the Doomseekers, because they get an extra D3 on the charge, so it adds 3 inches to their declarable charge. So if he rolls the maximum, he could actually make it in there. So,
well, he needs to, because he's going to get shot next if he doesn't.
Yes. Turn 3. So the bolt thrower does nothing.
You just rolled a 1, didn't you, to hit?
Yep. The Doomseeker failed his charge into the dragon. Another Doomseeker has come on, though, onto the table. So that's good from a reserve. You can see that now that the minor champion is dead, I have to accept your challenge with Thorgrim, because if I refuse, you send him to the back. The unit's no longer unbreakable. You probably kill 6 of them. They don't get to hit you back. They lose by a lot. They probably fall back in good order, at which point they hit your stag riders and just fall off the table.
Yeah, I mean, you are carrying big pickaxes, so wouldn't that be a strength +2? Great weapon.
They do have great weapons, yes, but they wouldn't be able to hit you back because you would kill the front rank.
Right, got you.
So there's no way I can refuse the challenge with Thorgrim, because I think the unit just automatically dies if I do that. So I accept the challenge, and Thorgrim is now going to go toe-to-toe. The whole objective of the battle for the Wood Elves is to kill Thorgrim, change the course of history, before he becomes the grudge bearer.
Yeah. I noticed the dice next to Thorgrim saying 1. Does that mean he's got 1 wound left?
Yes, you've taken off 2 of his wounds in the challenge already.
Wow. But he's still in the fight.
He is, but unfortunately he didn't get any of his wounds through your armor save, so he wasn't able, even with hatred, he couldn't get them through, so he wasn't able to do his D6 wounds, which would have been very nice.
That would have been one way to kill the dragon for sure.
However, what's this? I actually win combat, and that is because this unit of miners, because I've put ranks into them and they've got a banner, and they're a close order unit, they actually beat you in combat.
It's a bit weird. You shouldn't be getting rank bonuses if it's a challenge, because they haven't even fought, they've just stood back.
Well, you didn't have to issue a challenge. I wasn't going to issue a challenge this turn because you weren't touching Thorgrim, so you weren't going to be able to attack him.
Right, yes.
So I would have just accepted that I'm unbreakable and let you eat 6 miners while my reserves come to help.
I'm getting grudges against me in the chat here, Andy. I do, guys. I do have an amazing Marauder Dwarf army myself, but because Andy almost exclusively plays dwarves, it means that I have to bring in my other armies, which is absolutely fine with me because I've got plenty. I love all the armies, but it is very satisfying munching through Andy's, dwarves with the moot green bases.
Now,
Love it.
first of all, everyone knows that it's Goblin Green.
Goblin green, that's it. Yeah, goblin green.
You can also see here that I've realised that Rem's army is not actually that interested in fighting the Ironbreakers or the Royal Clan Warriors because they're flapping over my head and running away. So they've now gone into marching column with their drilled ability. So they're now moving a bit closer. This unit is actually facing this way. I've just put the standard bearer at the front there so you can see which way they're actually facing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're getting a bit closer, and then hopefully they'll be able to start charging something that matters in a minute, things that aren't flying away from them.
Yeah, you're really putting the squeeze on them Wild Riders at the bottom there.
Yes, with one of the Doomseekers. The other Doomseeker is here, by the way, so they're both in position, prime position to charge the dragon next turn. But we've got to survive this round. We've got to survive with 1 wound against the dragon with Thorgrim. So, at this point, now that I've gone into marching column and exposed my flank, you now decide that time is right to be brave and charge into the dwarves. So what's your logic here?
Well, at this point I realised, Andy, don't think you did yourself much justice with this list. I was really pleased you weren't playing Linehammer. But looking back on it now, I'm surprised you didn't bring any kind of runesmith with you.
Well, it is a narrative list, to be fair.
Yeah. But if you had brought a runesmith, would that just buff up your combat units?
It would add extra armor bane to a unit,
Right.
or it would allow me to stop your spells, which could be good. If I wanted to shut down a dragon, let's see, what would I do? I could put Thorgrim into a unit of hammerers, maybe, because then they can just keep accepting challenges or issuing challenges on his behalf. So you can only
never charge a hammerers unit as well. That's what I've learned, right?
Yeah, so you could keep they could keep the dragon locked up for a long time there if you were to charge into them. And I could put a BSB with the ward save banner on them, so it'd be harder for you to shoot them down. I think that's probably the most logical, strategic way of keeping a character alive in a dwarf army, is put them in a big block of hammerers with a ward save, and then if any big monsters come in and try to eat you, just keep challenging them with individual hammerers each time. So I think that would give him more chance of survival, but this narrative is that Thorgrim is with this ragtag band of miners, and the more high-quality troops are just coming in later because they were encamped nearby.
Well, I think we all applaud you, Andy, because you're doing a narrative game and not not a pathetic competitive list that ruins the fun for everyone.
And it's fun to see dwarf miners on the table for a change, because they're not very good.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it?
They actually remind me a bit of when you used to talk about Ungor Raiders back in 8th edition. The way you used to describe, I think the exact noise you used to make when they pop out of ambush was like, I'm ambushing you, I can't charge you.
Yeah, and you can't shoot either. Well, you couldn't shoot, so it was like, it's literally just like a flashing.
Yeah, so you pop out, you're not much of a threat, the enemy can run away from you, or they just shoot you because you're standing right next to them now.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story of, what was his name? I grew up in Northampton, and in the newspaper there was a story about this guy called Dick Licorice, and I actually named my first fish after him, Dick Licorice. But yeah, he was a flasher. And his game was to go in elevators, and when the elevator door opened, then he'd flash to the surprise of anyone opening the elevator door. But the only problem was...
The only problem
was when the elevator doors opened and he revealed his tackle, 2 police officers were standing there, and he was promptly arrested.
I like how that's the only problem as well.
So Dick Licorice's... flashing career didn't last very long, and that's kind of like the same with Ungor Raiders, I suppose.
So they just pop out, flash someone, and then okay.
Yeah, it's literally being caught with your pants down there is the phrase. But I think for stuff like miners and Ungor Raiders, perhaps they should have the rule that when they do appear, They can charge that turn. That would make them good then, wouldn't
I
it?
don't think it would make miners overpowered in the slightest if they could charge when they come on.
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantee they'll even make that charge. What are the chances that all your units are going to be near the table edge so they can charge anyway? But on the occasions where there is an opportunity for them to charge, that would be fun, I think. I don't think it would be overpowered because people could just flee from the charge if it's that scary. Anyway.
Yeah. Declaring charges. There we go.
Yeah, your war dancers are trying to get into the Royal Clan Warriors, but I think they fail their charge anyway.
Oh, that sucked. That sucked so bad. I really want. I don't care if I die. I just want to get them in combat.
And your cavalry mounted up on a hill turned down the flank charge into the Ironbreakers, but now showing their true colours, charging into a bolt thrower. Actually, I'm going to allow this because the bolt thrower is clearly made of wood. So perhaps it was chiselled from one of the sacred Wood Elf trees. So I'll allow you to charge them.
And you don't get a stand and shoot, no.
Bolt throwers cannot stand and shoot, no.
That sucks, man. So bad.
And the eagle is charging them as well because why not?
Yeah, I've always learned when you fight against Andy, you really have to make sure. Plus the eagle really wasn't doing anything else, so might as well pick off the bones of the bolt thrower.
Yeah, I've got your Wild Riders here into one of the Doom Seekers.
Yeah, love the Wild Riders. Just get them in combat every turn. It doesn't matter if they're frenzied.
And then you have hit the flank of the Ironbreakers now, which I'm not too concerned about.
Fantastic.
Because my Thane on Shield Bearer's there, because he's not in the fighting rank, he'll be able to bash his way through the ranks and join in the fight there.
Yes, now I was slightly hoping that you'd win that combat, push me back, and then perhaps I could do a flank charge in with the Eternal Guard. But instead I thought, well, let's just let's delete that Doom Seeker with some brave Eternal Guards, even though because they're charging with their spears, they won't get a second rank attack.
Yes, but you are putting up roadblocks to me reaching your dragon, which is important.
Yeah.
Because as we saw, the dragon doesn't necessarily win the combat by a lot each time. So anything charging it in the flank with, for example, the Ironbreakers have got a Rune of Battle in there, so they could potentially be adding if they get in there as well.
But I do get my stomps now. Didn't get my stomps before with the dragon because the wall was in the way, but now I do.
Correct. And you've also made both charges into the bolt thrower, so I don't like its chances.
I don't like its chances with the Azrai cavalry spears plus strength, strength 1 on the +1 strength on the charge. It should do the job, surely.
So let's see how it all goes. Well, you've done a wound onto Big Butts already. So those are the combats.
Yeah,
First
I
of
remember
all,
rolling really, really poorly for the Eternal Guard and all their attacks. I just couldn't get the wounds through.
First of all, the bolt thrower is dead, as expected. Then, the Ironbreakers against the... can't even remember their names now.
Wildwood Rangers.
Wildwood Rangers. The Ironbreakers, I think, actually win that combat.
Yeah, I did have the earthen ramparts on them, so I managed to save the wound that you got through.
Yes.
So that was cool.
So I didn't do much, but I've got good combat resolution in this unit anyway from the banner. And then you're against the Big Butts, Doomseeker of Doom.
Well, you challenged my champion in Eternal Guard.
Yes.
I refused it, went to the back in disgrace, and then didn't get any wounds through. So,
which was nice. But then you didn't take any wounds back because I think he missed all his attacks as well.
Yeah, which is unlike you there.
Unlike Big Butts. But you did kill the other Doomseeker. And then I think he killed another one of yours with his death blow as well.
Yeah, your death blow. So when a Doomseeker dies, he basically gets a free attack as he's dying. And that dying attack killed a Wild Rider. So, yeah, not too bad, really. I mean, I think each Wild Rider is something like 20-odd points. Don't quote me on that, but you've got good points back then.
So we're ready for the big combat now. Thorgrim versus the dragon, round 2. Let's see if he can survive. Here we go. No, he's dead.
28 points for a Wild Rider. Yeah.
Dragon just bites Thorgrim's head off, and you've changed the total timeline of the old world. Thorgrim has
They're
now been
very in
decapitated
trouble.
by a dragon at a mining outpost. He's no longer going to be able to gloriously lead the dwarven holds to glory.
I think it was the serrated maw which bit his head off with that. Not 100% certain, but it's good for the narrative.
There you go. So the Wood Elves have met their objective, but are they going to pay a hefty price for it? Because the Dwarves are obviously going to look for revenge and try and kill this dragon now. So let's find out if it can be done. Not a great start, because the miners lose combat by 1, fail their leadership and run away and die. So, to be fair, if the Lord, who is just visiting your outpost, gets decapitated by a dragon in front of you, I feel like at that point you would probably be a little bit hesitant to continue fighting.
Yes.
So that is 2 leadership tests I've taken in combat against this dragon. Both times I've rolled 11, I think.
Does it make you want to take a BSB next time, Andy?
I do put a BSB in my lists, but I didn't think a BSB was the right choice for this narrative scenario. I didn't want any other expensive characters in there with Thorgrim.
I think we'd all have liked to have seen the Goblin Hewer.
I think we would have liked to see it for 1 turn until you shot it with poison arrows.
You know, I knew you'd be hiding behind walls, and when I put my list together, I thought, shall I bring the true flight arrows instead of the hagbane? Because the true flight arrows, I think they ignore cover, so that could have been fun. But then obviously you'd get all your saving throws, and I'd have to be rolling 5s to wound you with the toughness 4. So
yes,
it was a toss up, and I went with hagbane.
So you can see the combat has continued, and we're now apart here. And the dragon is wondering what to do with his life now. He's been building up this moment, biting the Dwarf Lord's head off, and now, what are you going to do now?
It's time for some sulphuric breath on your royal clan. That would be ideal, wouldn't it? Don't know if I'm going to get the chance to do it, though.
So it is Wood Elf turn 5. And you can see Earthen Ramparts is just being thrown around willy-nilly, because I've only got 1 Fated Dispel. No Runesmiths in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't manage to try Wind Blast out, partly because I wasn't quite in range for it ever. So that makes me think, if you're going to take a Wood Elf Spell Singer or Spell Weaver, probably best to put them on something that gives them high movement, like an eagle or a unicorn or something.
Well, you put Storm Call onto these Iron Breakers, which is going to reduce their movement and initiative. And because of the way they lost, I think I actually lost the combat against them.
Wow.
By 1 last turn.
Because you hit
them in the flank, I think I ended up losing by 1. Which means that they then, I think I just gave ground, which puts me right next to the table edge. So your wizard is now eyeing that with Wind Blast, thinking if I just give them a gentle little nudge with a bit of wind, they're going to touch that edge and they'll all die immediately.
Yeah, now I'd love to show this to the YouTuber that said Wildwood Rangers are rubbish. Because 9 of them just pushed back to the table edge, 16, 17 odd Iron Breakers with a Thane on a shield or whatever.
We've also got the dragon into the Royal Clan Warriors now. The Royal Clan Warriors are angry. They've just seen Thorgrim being decapitated, and they're hungry for dragon blood now. So we'll see if they can do something. And let's see if the wizard can successfully Wind Blast the unit off the table. Let's have a look. Yes. The Ironbreakers, a gentle breeze pushes these iron-clad warriors slightly off the battlefield, at which point they go, oh no, and they're all dead now. Because someone's big toe touched the edge of the table, they are now all dead.
That's incredible.
Running back to the mines, no doubt.
So, what have you learnt from that, Andy? Don't put your dwarves near the table edges.
Well, in my defence, they didn't start off that close to the edge.
Right.
But yes, in general, when there's Wind Blast, you can see I did take some precautions against Wind Blast by not putting anyone so close to the edge.
I forgot I did manage to get Wind Blast off in that last turn. That's so funny. I'm I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I'm only laughing because Andy usually absolutely trashes me, and I know he probably gave me this game in sympathy just to keep me into the game because I was that disheartened. But which is very magnanimous of you, Andy. But yeah, it was funny. Just wind blasting some dwarves off the table. Brilliant.
Then we've got big butts charged from both sides now. So I don't think the plumpness of the butt cheeks are going to protect him from being trampled by stag hooves, unfortunately.
No, I doubt they will. But you might get a death blow.
Let's find out how it goes. So he's dead, obviously. Skewered by antlers or trampled by hooves, either way, he's still dead.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that glorious a death, because he failed the charge into the thing that he was seeking his glorious death against, and now he's been killed by some puny elves instead.
Yeah. Now you have managed to take 1 wound off the dragon, because I'm looking at the skull dice there, and they say 8 wounds left. So somewhere you must have got a wound on him.
Yes, so in an act of hilarity, the Royal Clan Warrior Champion, I think he actually wounded you, and you then killed him with the stomps, I think, which is why he was able to attack you in the first place. So you failed the save from his attack. So he did a wound, then died. However, the Royal Clan Warriors, with their Rune of Battle, that means they actually win combat. The dragon fails its leadership test, flees across half your army, causing panic, but none of them actually failed their tests. So this dragon...
Well, I won't call it a flee, it's just a tactical withdrawal.
I think that symbol there represents flee. So this dragon that heroically bit the head off of Thorgrim and took on an entire dwarven army on its own, suffered 1 wound at the hand of a Royal Clan champion, who it then killed, and found the sight of its own blood so terrifying that it's fleeing for the hills.
Oh dear.
Well...
Oh.
So the Royal Clan Warriors are rescuing a bit of pride for the dwarves now, chasing off the dragon.
Yeah.
And let's see what happens in the dwarven turn 5. So they charge into...
You got to feel for those war dancers. They've just been chasing your dwarves around the table.
These ones
they can't
here,
get anywhere near them. Yeah, it sucks.
So the Royal Clan Warriors, first of all, they charge into this cavalry unit here, Wild Riders, but I think they flee. So I then redirect into this unit instead. So I am going to get some combat. And we don't do that much in terms of killing there. So I think we're just stuck fighting each other now. There you go. Oh, actually, yeah, look at that. 6 on the old combat res. So I think I got a decent score there. But you did not fail your test. So you're not fleeing. Let's see. Turn 6 for the Wood Elves. So the dragon decides, actually, that's a bit embarrassing. It's just like a graze of my big dragon toe. So I'm going to pretend it was a tactical withdrawal and just turn round and act like I was being very calculated and not screaming and fleeing like a child. So rallies the dragon, turns round, and the eagle has become quite brave now as well. Charges into a dwarf unit that can fight back rather than War Machine crew. And all that results in the death of a couple of Royal Clan warriors. But the Royal Clan win the combat again, and both Wood Elf units flee. So this Royal Clan, I don't know which swamp they made their way up to the mining outpost through, but for some reason, their aura is scaring away every Wood Elf unit they fight.
Now, Andy, you told me that the Royal Clan was probably your worst unit in this army, and it's turned out to be the most effective.
I don't know why. That should not be the case, because they're not actually that good. They're pretty much they're dwarven warriors, but you can upgrade them a bit more.
What's on paper, right? And this is where all this maths hammer thing is all nonsense to me, because what's on paper and what's in practice are 2 different things.
Yes, that is true. As soon as you start rolling dice or putting the units into the hands of a human, then things are going to be different. So you can see the Hand of Rem there, which is a lesser known spell in elementalism. And into turn 6 for the Dwarves. So the Royal Clan warriors just trying to chase down enemies. And they actually, I think they catch the Eternal Guard that were fleeing. Because if you're already fleeing and you're charged, you have to continue fleeing. But I think you rolled about 2 inches flee. So you actually got caught by the Dwarves, killed. So the Royal Clan warriors are now standing proud in the middle of this mining outpost. And because the battle is over, the Wood Elves are just going to respectfully bow their heads to the Royal Clan, say, well done, you did a good job, we've got what we came for, we're going to go home now and have tea.
That is very embarrassing for the Eternal Guard, I must admit. They're supposed to be Eternal Guardians, and instead they run away. But on the upside, those dwarves are now exposed to being royal pin cushions for all my dwarf elf shooting. So if we did have a turn 7, I might just hang back and just play fish in a barrel for a turn.
But of course, battles do not last longer than 6 turns, as we know. So the Wood Elves are going home, the Royal Clan warriors are going home, and how embarrassing, they're having to drag back the headless corpse of the Lord Thorgrim that they're going to have to present to the other dwarf lords and tell them exactly what happened.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the elves will be feasting tonight and planting trees where once there was a mine. And the elven dragon will be chomping on the head of Thorgrim all night and enjoying it. But unfortunately, finding dirty bits of dwarven beard stuck in his teeth.
For weeks to come, I'm sure.
Mm.
So there he is. Not accurately presented here, because obviously his head's off now. And there's the dragon. Took a little bit of a graze to his big toe, had a little bit of a wuss moment and ran away, but then realised, actually, you know what, it's not that scary.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a Wood Elf dragon you can buy at the minute from Games Workshop because it's really old. It's a great model. The what's it called? Sisters of Twilight is a model I'm looking to get. I'm hoping, Andy, that when the Wood Elves are released, that maybe they'll get us some, they'll get us some new models. Hopefully, a dragon and a Wood Elf Lord on a stag would be fantastic. So, wouldn't necessarily have to use other ranges, but that dragon looks pretty goddamn cool. And if I was to start a cafe army, I think it would work really well in that.
Yes. So, the goal for this game, there are 2 parts to knowing the rules to a game and trying to become good at it. It's what you do on the table and also list building. So in an attempt to create a narrative game in the style of kind of old White Dwarf battle reports, then completely bypassing the list building phase, just picking 2 dwarf forces that kind of represent the narrative that's going on, and then only using any skills that you've learned from playing Warhammer to do something with those units on the table, work with what you're given, and try and meet an objective purely with those tools at your disposal, not being able to pick your own tools. And I think that is a challenge that is lacking, obviously, in competitive play, because everyone can just pick their own list. Obviously, you can take an army that's out of favour and isn't very strong at the moment, which is looked upon with respect usually. So that's about the closest you get to it. But there is something to be said for having a game like this, where you have a less than ideal force and you're trying to make the best of it to try and not even destroy the enemy, but just meet a particular objective.
Well, and history is full of battles exactly like that, where the troops had to make do with what they had available. That is real. And unfortunately, in real life, you don't get to build a list and field the perfect thing in every battle. The other thing I found, just I put together, on paper, a really competitive list, and when I put the models out, it didn't look very good. It didn't look like a good army. You'd really want to photograph because it didn't have any like big blocks of units or, So I kind of changed my mind when I saw how my army looked, and that's why I brought in, all the war dancers and the Wildwood Rangers and the Eternal Guard, and suddenly my army looked kind of cool then. and didn't do too bad on the battlefield as well. And I think if you had all your units laid out from the start, I probably could still give you a good run for your money. Not saying I'd win,
I
but it'd
think
still be a good game.
list versus list, I think yours would probably win just a normal game of Warhammer. But for this mission, I think if everything was on the table at the start, it would have been more difficult for you to reach Thorgrim, probably. Because I would have had more units in the way.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't take the dragon, maybe I'd take a tree men and some Sisters of Thorn.
Without the dragon, it would have been much harder as well.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. I would have, if I could change my list, I would like to bring more Wild Riders. Maybe have a unit of 7 Wild Riders, and maybe put a Great Lord on a stag in with those, so there'd be this kind of like glass cannon Death Star. That could be pretty cool.
So what I'm thinking we could do, because we've already there's enough competitive games on this channel. There's tournament reports, there's battle reports from the club every other week or so. So there's lots of competitive action. So perhaps what we should do is ask the audience which units they would like to see used from certain armies, and we'll kind of create a narrative that fits them into it. So whether that's dwarves, or which of your armies are ready for battle at the moment?
Well, I have a dwarf army. I have every unit you can get available, I believe. Yes, I do. Same with the elves, Wood Elves. I've got every unit you can get. I can't spam anything, right? So, you know what I mean? I don't know how people manage to get armies together so fast and spam units out and paint them up. I'm assuming there'll probably be bad paint jobs, but I don't roll like that. I like to have one of everything in an army. So it's a good idea. What else have I got? I've got an Empire army, which I've almost got everything you can get for that.
Are you adding to that with the new releases?
Yeah, I'm going to see what the war wagon's like. I'm not going to pay through the nose for it though, so we'll have to wait on that. But yeah, I've definitely got 2000. I've got old school war altar. I've got loads of flagellants. I've got witch hunters. I've got not hippogriff. They've got the griffin riders guys on. What they're called, the Empire Knights on griffins. I've got an Empire guy on the massive Karl Franz guy. Yeah, I've got loads of state troops, gunners. So I could definitely feel 2,000 points of Empire. Probably also feel 2,000 points of Gobbos, loads of squigs, loads of night goblins, snotling pump wagons. Yeah, that could be fun as well.
I do technically also have a Vampire Counts army. It doesn't have a lot of the big cool stuff, but it does exist. It's mostly Mantic models.
Yeah.
So, people in the comments, let us know which kind of units you would like to see used in some kind of narrative game, or is there a particular narrative, a particular combo of 2 armies that you'd like to see facing off each other? Any ideas at all, throw them in there and we'll see what we can do.
I think we'd all like to see halflings come back. I've got a halfling army as well on square bases.
I think the world needs halflings to come back. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
So Andy, I think it's time you should think about a different army, having played your dwarfs so many times.
I'm not going to spoil for the people what it is, but I am hoping that within, let's say, 2 months, there is going to be a full new old world army ready for me to use. What do you think about that?
Fabulous. Well,
and without spoiling what it is, I can reveal also to the people that I'm not using any miniatures released after 1998.
Well, if Andy's traits are anything to go by, it's probably going to be an army that has high armor saving throws.
Let's see. That is true across most of my armies, actually. In most game systems, I do like to have good armor saves. Yes.
Yeah, and we're both working on Bretonnian armies, aren't we, as well?
We are. Yes.
That's going to be
very slowly.
Yeah, very slowly.
Maybe in like 5 years we'll have a Bretonnia off.
I've been collecting old school Citadel miniatures, led, what they're called. They're kind of like hunters and trappers and scouts. So they're going to be working as squires, peasant squires.
They don't even. Do they even call them squires anymore? Do they call them? They
Squires,
call them
yeah.
yeomen now, don't they?
No, they're called yeomen. Are the ones on the horses,
Hmm.
and the squires are sort of like the peasant.
I think the
archer
mounted
scouts.
yeomen used to be called mounted squires when they were originally
Right,
around, those
right.
models.
Yeah. Well, it's taken me almost a month to paint 6 Knights of the Realm. Yeah, because I've really gone for it with all the decals and the kind of checkered, uh, bright colours and stuff.
Have you got a
And
full
yeah,
unit painted yet?
no, I've only got 4 painted. Yeah, it's going to take me another week or two to get those done. Then I've got some what they call questing knights. Always wanted those models. Finally got them, and then I realised they're absolutely terrible in the game, and no one ever plays them. Which is the perfect reason for me to have a unit of them. I think.
Exactly.
Same with the Grey Relic. I've got one of those. I've got loads of Grey monks, so they're going to feature heavily in my army. And again, no one ever seems to use it, so that's another reason for me to get that on the table.
Well, if you're in it mostly for the hobby aspect of it, you paint what's cool, and then one day it might be good on the table. How about that? That's the dream.
Absolutely. And also bought the. There was a £10 gift voucher for GW. The Warhammer Plus account thing. And with that, I bought the Battle Standard Bearer on Royal Pegasus because it just looks so amazing.
That is a very nice model.
Yeah, again, I've never seen that being used either, so they are.
Well, let us know in the comments what you want to see, and we'll do our best to make it happen. So, Mr. You're back in the old world wagon again. Looking forward to getting more games in soon. Are you feeling invigorated?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, really enjoyed that. I did admire your magic cards that you managed to get. I can't. Can you still get those?
Intermittently available, I think, is the best phrase to use.
Right. What are they called? Magic. What old world battle? What are they called? Old world battle magic cards.
They are occasionally in stock.
£47 on eBay.
Yeah, you don't think you want to go to eBay. I think they still have them occasionally on the GW website. Every now and then they pop up and then sell out again.
Wow.
And if they're not going to release enough of them, then obviously people are just going to print their own magic cards. So you might end up having to do that one day.
Yes, I can see another one for £99 here on eBay. And there was also the common magic items reference card pack. Did you pick up one of those?
I don't think I got one of those.
Right.
I didn't see them as necessary.
That's a shame. I'm not sure why they don't sell them anymore, because I imagine people would still want to get those.
Well, on the Old World launch day, the magic cards were the first thing to go. Like, being about 10th in the queue, by the time we got in there, they'd all gone already.
Flipping. Were people like buying bag full of them?
They didn't allow you to buy lots of them at once. It was just, because I didn't go straight for the magic cards, because that's not what I was interested in, by the time I got to the till, after I'd been browsing the Bretonia stuff, then they'd all gone by then. So it was like within the first 50 people in, all the magic cards had gone.
Wow.
And there were hundreds of people that went in that day.
I'm definitely going to get the Wood Elf ones. I managed to pick up the Empire ones. But yeah, the thing is with these, the supplements and arcane books and faction books is that, they go out of date within 2 years, and I usually haven't even finished painting my army by that point.
Yeah, I find the faction cards a little bit unnecessary, actually.
Right, I've not even opened the pack yet.
I got the Dwarf ones, but I haven't ever used them.
Wow.
Because...
Why not? You just know them off by heart.
They've got like cards for the special abilities of the anvil, like the different runes. But I've never felt compelled to use them because I just know the rules because I've played it enough.
I got you.
I've also got an extra set of the Dwarven dice, by the way, which I had to get because I think I needed to get up to some kind of free postage threshold on one of the retailers when I was buying all the Dwarf stuff when it came out. But I'm not that big a fan of the Dwarf dice, actually. So I might sell that second set.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's a good thing about Warhammer stuff, is that there is resale value in them all.
Yeah, if you keep it in the box, it does retain its value.
Yeah. So, yeah, keep it in the box until you're going to use them.
Yes.
Or not.
Right.
So,
it's time to wrap this one up.
Absolute privilege, Andy, not pressure. It's great to be back.
It has been a delight slaughtering 4 Wood Elves. I think that was delightful. And making a dragon run away is always nice as well. But obviously, it's the friends you make along the way. It's not the result of the battle that matters, obviously. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's right, Andy.
Exactly. So, thanks for watching, everyone, and see you again in more battle reports very soon. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, all the various social media shenanigans. I'll get Rem to post his Bretonnian Knights when they're finished on the Discord. You want to check that out as well.
And remember, what you seek is seeking you.
You're really trying to get that catchphrase back now. It didn't have legs when you first tried to get that to catch on years ago. I don't think it's going to work now. Anyway, the real catchphrase, of course, which we'll close on, is good night out there, whatever you are.